my neighbor, Yuji, was riding his bike down the street, and he's in his wetsuit. He's got his surfboard, on the little rack, and he rides by me, and he slows down a little bit, and he says to me, man, it's a shame if somebody lives in this neighborhood and doesn't go to the beach every single morning. And I felt so bad, and I felt so convicted because I was just on my walk. I was in the neighborhood. I didn't just get back from the beach, and it had been probably weeks or maybe a couple or 3 or maybe even a month since I had been to the beach. But in his head, it was such a gift to live in our neighborhood because it's so close to the water that if you didn't utilize the water, he was saying, why should you even live in the neighborhood? And it got me thinking the whole entire day. And then when I got up the other day, I was riding out to the beach. And while I was riding, I was like, what gifts do I have in my life that I'm not utilizing? How many gifts has God given me? How many opportunities, how many people has he brought into my life that I'm not just spending time lifting them up, that I'm not speaking life to them, that I'm not taking and utilizing every ounce of every single gift that he has given? Well, I could tell you, if you're a human being, most likely you have some gifts that you're not utilizing. So Proverbs 6 poses the questions, what are the gifts at your fingertips that you aren't honoring? And so as we go through it today, it's great because there was a bunch of questions that it just asked. Proverbs 6 just asked. And I tell you, as I was getting these questions asked of me, it started to make me feel a little bit uncomfortable. But I tell you, it was very telling. Once I started to answer those questions, started to open up, and I started to realize not about all the things that I didn't have, but all the gifts that I did have that I wasn't honoring. So why don't we get this party started?
Nothing more on my mind. I got two shines, so every day I grind. Work in the morning, work in the evening. We's achieving, cause we believing. It's for certain, we put the work in. We ain't stopped just because it's hurting. Right before your eyes, so it's coming to no surprise. The takeover is televised. Over and over and over again. Make no mistake, we continue to win. Defeat never known, cause I will not lose. They wanna mimic my moves, but can't walk in my shoes.
I got a message from my brother the other day, and it said, if you're making building molehills where God has promised you mountains, you're actually not honoring the gifts. You're not honoring God in it. And I was like, man, that's kind of tough, because there are times where I play small. There's times where I'm like, you know what? I'll play small, I'll play safe. I'll play not to lose as opposed to playing to win. And it doesn't mean that we take risks all the time in every single thing. That would... what I would suggest is that we rely on that wisdom that we talk about. But as we look today, the question that God was asking me is like, what gifts do you have, son? What gifts do you have that you're not honoring? And that's the question that I would have for every single one of you is, what gifts do you have that you're not spreading and giving away to every single person possible? Are you hoarding the gift? Are you honoring it? Are you multiplying that gift? It's incredible, because the more and more that we ask that question, I think the more and more gifts that you'll see that you have. And there's things that innately are just a part of you. And sometimes you won't see them as that valuable. You know, I had a woman tell me, one time, she owned a Paul Mitchell distributorship. So she had products, Paul Mitchell products were just normal to her. Well, she had some guests come over. Her name is Terry Cowan. Our guest came over. She went into the bath. They went into the bathroom. They came out and they're like, oh my gosh, what is this? And Terry said, oh, that's just sculpting foam. And her family member was like, you spoiled brat. And Terry said, what are you talking about? She said, this is one of the greatest products on the planet. And I don't get to use it every single day. I don't have access to this, but to you, it's just sculpting foam. And what she realized is that she had a gift that she wasn't really honoring because she was so used to it. So what are we used to? It could be our spouse, could be our kids, could be the neighborhood we live in, like Yuji called me out on, which was kind of tough. So I want us to stay in that vein and to be able to ask, like, what is it that you have that you're not honoring. So I want to welcome you to another episode of Inchstones. Inchstones are just a bunch of little tiny actionable items that you could do today that you could celebrate. And when you pile them up, they become the milestone. There's a word called Kaizen, which is a Japanese word, which is a series of small improvements or never walking past poor quality. And we do this episode, these episodes of Inchstones. These are the commentary. We do about 10, 15 minutes, maybe 20 sometimes, where you could take us on your walk, and we'll be able to build your soul. We'll give you some soul food. And what this is we constantly go after 3,000-year-old wisdom and how can it apply to today. So that way we get out of the circumstantial and we go right into the principle-based wisdom. So that way, no matter what circumstance happens, you'll be prepared for that. If you haven't yet liked and subscribed and commented and done all that stuff, do it. Share it with somebody who you know. That's what I would challenge you to do. Is this message obviously is for you who's watching or listening, but also it's for one of your friends or one of your family members who needs to hear it. So the biggest compliment that you could ever do, number one, is watch or listen to the podcast. But the number two is to share it. Share it as often as possible with somebody who needs to hear some encouragement. So, let's jump right into Proverbs 6. And Proverbs 6 poses those questions, or what gifts are you not honoring? And in verse 1 through 5, are you buying things you don't need to impress people that you don't care about? Is this taking attention away from gifts that you have been given? And I can tell you, yes. I'm going to answer yes emphatically. Are you buying things you don't need to impress people you don't care about? Yes, I've fallen victim to this. Is this taking attention away from the gifts that you have been given? Yes, because it takes away time. We only have a certain amount of time. And if I'm spending all my time trying to accumulate all these things to impress people I don't even care about, it's nuts to think that that's taking away from me giving my gift to somebody, and my gifts aren't made for me. They're made to bless somebody else. So I want to encourage you, go give your gift away, whatever it is. Text someone today, email them, call them, and speak life to them. Use their name, something that they did, that it really inspired you. I got to do this with one of my friends today in the neighborhood. His name is Tim, and Tim happens to be the bassist for Switchfoot. And I was driving by, and I saw him and his wife. They're walking their little dog, and I stopped by, and I told Tim how much he means to me. I listened to his music for over 20 years. He actually, agreed to be my friend, which was amazing. I got to have him on 2 times on the podcast, talk about his Grammy, talk about all these things, which was amazing. But I wanted to let him know how much he blessed my life and how much he inspires me on a day-to-day basis. That could be a gift that you give away. And so speak life to people. In verse 6 through 8, are you overlooking the small victories and chasing the home runs? I'll say yes. I am. There's times where I overlook these things. I overlook the fact that I live in the neighborhood that I live in, and it's as close to the water as I am, and some days I don't go to the beach. That's a disservice, as Yuji would say. There are some times where I'm thinking about, oh man, when's the next speaking engagement that I'm going to be doing for this conference or for this company, and not thinking about what I get a chance to do on a day-to-day basis. Sometimes I'm more focused on the Wednesday than the Tuesday that I'm living in. And so my answer in that one is yes. Are you overlooking small victories and chasing home runs? It doesn't mean that you don't, knock the ball out the park, but like we talked about before, if you go back and listen to episode number 574, it talks about preparation and opportunity meeting. Right? And if you prepare when the opportunity poses itself, success will happen. So in verse 9 through 11, are you lazy with your gifts? I have to take a moment of silence there. Are you lazy with your gifts? Sometimes. I think we all fall victim to this, although I'll just call myself out. There's a lot of times where I'm lazy with my gift and I'm not, pouring into it as much as I possibly can. So I could get better at it. That's where grace comes in too. So you want to be able to forgive yourself in those things and walk through it, accept God's grace, but also ask yourself, are you being lazy with your gifts? In verse 12 through 15, who are you listening to, watching, and hanging out with? Now, I've argued this fact in my men's group before, where people will say, you're the sum of the 5 people that you put yourself around. I think that you could go both ways, right? I mean, you look at, yes, that could work. You hang out with people who are lifting you up, things like that. Yes, absolutely. Am I the sum of the 5 people I hang out with? I think they can enhance. I think they could do that. But I think it's a generalization that sometimes just people use as a bumper sticker, whatever it is. But here's where the contrary part is. Jesus hung out with 12 boneheads and he brought them together. And was he the sum of the 12 people that he was hanging around? I don't think so. So there's always exceptions to these things. But what the question is, what are you listening to, watching, and hanging out with? Just ask yourself those things. And I'm not saying that you have to be the sum of the 5 people that you hang out with, but I can tell you this: most of the time, what you see, what you hear, and what you become aware of through the senses starts to become a part of you, where you start to act it out. So just be conscious of it. In verse 16 through 19, are you showing focus, truth, kindness, discretion, patience, and honor to your gifts? Let me read them again. And the cool thing is now, guys, is our Substack is up and running. So I'm going to put the link in the bio, and you guys can become a part of our Substack. And that means that you'll be able to get the production notes. So that way, while you're listening, whether on your walk or your run or whatever it is, you'll have these. And then that way, when you study Proverbs or you read through it, you can actually add your own notes, but you'll have a little cheat sheet to it too. But let me ask you this again. Are you showing focus, truth, kindness, discretion, patience, and honor to your gifts that you've been given? And in the event that you're not, just pick out one of those, work on that for a week, pick the next one, work on that for a week, pick the next one, work on that for a week. I mean, this really, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That'll be 6 weeks of training. So the first one, focus on your gifts. Second one, are you showing truth in your gifts? Are you really truthful with what your gift is? Next week, do kindness. Next week, do discretion. Next week, do patience. Next week, do honor. Are you honoring them? And I tell you, it will amplify the gifts that you have. As we finish up today is verse 20 through 35. And this one's, that's a lot of verses. It's like 16 verses when you look at it. Are you filling your heart, mind, and body with the unfair advantages of your gifts? Let me just sit in that for a second. Are you filling your heart, your mind, and your body with the unfair advantages of your gifts? See, your gifts are an unfair advantage. When you're gifted at something, like I figured out that I was gifted at figuring out what other people were great at and allowing them to do it. I figured that from a very, very early age. So when I'm in a room, I can empower people to do exactly what they love to do, what they were purposed to do. I can identify those things, and sometimes I could see it where they can't see it. And then I allow them to do it. That's a gift. And so I want to go give that away to every single person. Now, there's other things that I've worked at, right? So in the professional beauty industry for 30 years, I worked at that. Like I worked at it. I've, worked at it until I got my haircut down to, if I did a long layered haircut, it was 7 to 11 minutes, did highlighting from 15 to 20 minutes, like boom, it was done. Being able to highlight and color and do a haircut and have the woman out in 55 minutes to an hour. Like that's because I worked at those things. It wasn't really my gift. It was something that I worked at. The gift part of it was making someone feel amazing while they were in the chair by figuring out what they were great at and allowing them to be that, and then encouraging that as much as possible. That was a gift. So watch this. Are you filling your heart, mind, and body with the unfair advantages of your gifts? What is the shiny object that is stealing your focus? And so that's where we finish up. That's where I want you to sit into. What's the shiny object? What's the thing that's deterring you from spending energy on your gifts? Is it not working your land? Is it looking at somebody else? Is it comparison? Is it all these things that I fall victim to also? And I tell you, I'm a Tennessee Titans fan, so I've been comparing myself to my friend Dave because he is a Chiefs fan, and I'm like, man, wouldn't it be great to, be able to? I cheer on Rick Burkholder. Don't get me wrong, vice president of sports medicine and performance for the Kansas City Chiefs. He was on the podcast. I cheer him on, but I am tried and true Oilers and Titans fan. Now, I fall victim to comparison every single week because, guys, we just lost 10-6 to the Jaguars. The Jaguars, I think they should be playing high school basketball or football. They shouldn't even be in the league. I compared myself the other night because I'm a Warriors fan, and I was watching Anthony Edwards, and he was on fire. Although, I think the Warriors are going to take it this year. That's my prediction. So are you filling your mind, your body, and your heart, your mind, your body with the unfair advantages of your gifts, and what shiny things are deterring you? Sometimes it's comparison. It could be other things, but just be very, very conscious of that. You see, our gifts are meant to bless others. And when we have not identified them, fostered them, honored them, and utilized them, we are robbing someone else's blessing. Are you, like Yuji said, living in the neighborhood and not going to the beach? What gifts do you have in your life right now that you're not honoring? And what I would challenge you to do is go honor your gift today. Like, I want you to call someone. I want you to text someone. I want you to, email somebody, FaceTime, whatever it is. Show up, have coffee with them, and give your gift away, because your gifts were meant to bless others. I hope you had a phenomenal time. Like, subscribe, comment, do all the things that you know you need to do. It's been another episode of Inchstones. We've also got we got the interview side where I interview some of the most iconic people in the world, and they give advice to my kids by name. And then I've also got the show that is called You Have to Meet My Friends, where I go live and I call my friends randomly, and they don't even know they're on the podcast till they're on the podcast. So check out all the shows. I love you guys. Thanks for rocking with me. My name is Kelly Cardenas, and I'm officially off the hot seat. Peace, love, and soul.
On my mind, I got two shines, so every day I grind. Work in the morning, work in the evening. We's achieving, cause we believing. It's for certain, we put the work in. We ain't stopped just because it's hurting. Right before your eyes, so it's coming to no surprise. The takeover is televised. Over and over and over again.